Greetings and salutations everyone, Artistic Tyler here, also formerly known as Tyler the Animator. I've changed my username yet again because Tyler the Animator sounded way too similar to Tyler the Creator and I just didn't want that mix up. Anyways, today I will be yapping about The Incredibles as my speed paint of Incredibles fan art plays in the background. I'll be focusing on Bob / Mr. Incredible mostly because if I don't have a focus, I will just be yapping aimlessly. This is mostly for y'all's sake more than mine, because if I had the choice, I would just be yapping aimlessly, but for the sake of the video, I need a focus. Also, if y'all haven't kept track of my Instagram, which is at weird_artist12, I've been fairly obsessed with this movie. I decided to rewatch it a couple weeks ago with my bestie, and I noticed because it was trending on TikTok again, and I was just like, you know what, why not just rewatch it? I do own it on DVD, so let's just give it a shot. After we finished the movie, I felt like there's a little worm crawling to my brain. I tried ignoring it at first because it's like I just felt it was so weird to fix it on a Pixar movie, especially something that's niche but not niche, you know? I decided to draw some Incredibles fan art because, you know, why not? And it should be shown right now. And that's just where it all went downhill. I've been obsessed with the movie since. I've been listening to Incredibles analysis videos at work. I've watched a bunch of Incredibles edits in my classes, or in between my classes. And I've rewatched the movies, both the first and the second, more times than I'd like to admit. I've read the comics, and of course, I've been drawing fan art. Though the character that's caught my attention the most is Bob Parr / Mr. Incredible. First off, just his design alone, it's so fucking good. It's just a part of my brain. I just adore just how big and giant he is. Like, he's basically a fat giant triangle, and I love it. And I don't know, it's just so hard to explain why I love the design so much. It's just like, I know there's terms and technicalities, but it's just like, I don't know, the best I can explain is just, I just get euphoria whenever I see Bob, because his design is just so well done. But speaking of Bob Parr is a father to 2 kids, Violet and Dash, and a husband to Helen Parr. His powers are super strength, amazing durability, he's practically indestructible, and he can sense imminent danger. And his powers were inspired by the functions of family dynamics. Since Bob is the head / the man of the family, he's expected to protect and provide, thus his super strength. I enjoy how Brad Bird handles masculinity. It's not the typical commentary on toxic masculinity you tend to see in more modern media. The way Brad does it is he shows the standards men have of masculinity, and it could cause them to become stressed and isolate themselves. The way Bird implements masculinity along with Bob's superpowers is just so well done. He adds how Bob feels the need to work alone to prove his worth and capability. He feels as though he will fail and endanger others instead of being able to protect them if he allows people like his family to work with him. The very idea of his family being endangered makes him feel as though he's failed in his position as a protector and he wouldn't be strong enough, which is put upon him due to the standards of a nuclear family during the 60s and his powers being a defensive type, meaning he can fight back unlike his family. I'm not saying he shouldn't fear for his family's safety or anything like that, because of course he will. He will fear for his family's safety. I'm just saying, like, he has this such high expectation and he feels as though if he fails, he's like not worth it. Outside of Bob's powers, the way his masculinity shows is like an example of him lying and hiding his true feelings, intentions, and actions from his wife and family. He kept the island and Syndrome's whole deal away from Helen until she had to investigate everything herself, which forced him to tell Helen everything. A similar thing that happens when Bob attempts to face the Omnidroid alone, closer to the end of the movie. Helen confronts him and questions why he wants to do this alone. She pushes him until he has to open up about why he didn't want their help. He wanted to feel strong, so he pushed his feelings aside as to not to get emotional in front of his family, as he would have viewed that as a weakness. Once he finally breaks down, he explains how he's worried about losing his family again, and he feels as though he's not strong enough to handle it. He talks about this while barely being able to hold eye contact with Helen, like practically looking away. It's almost as though he feels ashamed to admit a weakness that prevents him from working with others. He wants to fight with Omnidroid to prove his worth and to not lose his family. Helen reassures Bob instead of shaming him for his insecurities. Bob is the strongest super in his family. He feels as though revealing his insecurities will break this illusion of him being strong and almost leader-like. This is elaborated more in the now not canon comics, because the second movie retconned the comics. Bob gets a scrapbook from the Everseer, who is clairvoyant, and it reminds him of what happened with Syndrome. He mentions how Everseer was also Syndrome's first victim. In the comics from 2009, issue 12, Bob and Lucius, aka Frozone, they discuss the events with Syndrome and Everseer's abilities. Like, Lucius, he doubts Everseer's power, stating, if Everseer could really see through the time, if he could really tell the future, and he knew when he'd die, why did he let Syndrome kill him? Why did he let Syndrome kill everybody? Afterwards, Bob starts to project his feelings onto Lucius, saying, you know what, I think you feel guilty. You feel guilty that they're all dead and we're alive. Bob is unable to admit to himself that he has survivor's guilt. This bleeds into him being unable to admit when he has insecurity because it messes with his image. Bob pushes his problems to the side. He attempts to avoid talking about them, and when he does, he tends to frame them in a different lighting. Later on in issue 15, Bob eventually admits his survivor's guilt and apologizes to Lucius for projecting his insecurities onto him. He says, the old days, they're behind us. Everseer's scrapbook, it just drove something home I was trying to ignore. He continues, I'm the one who feels guilty. I mean, Syndrome, he killed everyone just for practice. For practice so he can get to me. Bob is a textbook definition of survivor's guilt. He feels responsible for the deaths of many. He feels guilty for being alive while everyone else is dead, as stated before. Well, it's not stated as, he feels as though he's not worthy of being alive after everything that's happened on Syndrome's island. He unknowingly contributed to the development of a robot that killed all of his friends and could have killed him and his family. Rather than addressing what happened to him, he attempted to ignore what happened until he got a reminder of the past. That book brought up those old guilty feelings, the feelings that he was trying to avoid. Lucius wanted Bob to move on, but Bob wanted to ignore that it even happened, and when he was confronted, Bob projected it onto Lucius. I wish the second movie had addressed, or at least acknowledged, the possibility of Bob suffering from survivor's guilt. I know the focus was on Helen mostly, but maybe just in passing conversation, or maybe Helen getting him to talk about it. The second movie also, as stated before, retconned the comics entirely, so that conversation he has with Lucius doesn't really matter, but I still enjoy it as a concept. It adds more nuance, it keeps hold of the mature topics that the Incredibles can talk about, and it keeps Bob's character fairly consistent with how he tends to avoid his problems rather than addressing them. Okay, I feel like I've yapped enough. Thank you to those who made it this far in the video. I know this isn't really super organized, but I had fun talking about it, and I feel like that's just all that matters. I might make more videos like this in the future. I might make more little scripts of me analyzing different things I enjoy, but who knows. Anyways, thank y'all for watching. I hope y'all have a great day, night, or evening.